could you start off by telling me a little bit more about your position at ZinCo Canada and about how your work and your research fits into the overall goals of the company?
ZinCo Canada is a green roof company. So in short, we're putting plants on roofs, and there's some benefits there from a building envelope standpoint, it's called. So like what surrounds the building. So there's some insulation values, there's some stormwater benefits. So that's sort of what ZinCo does, is we're purely a green roof supplier. What my position is within the company, we're quite small, so you kind of wear every hat on every different day, depending on what needs to happen. My title is project estimator and research development lead. So I'm quite involved in projects, more specifically on the residential side. And then a big chunk of my time is dedicated to running our small but mighty research and development program. Some of the things that we've sort of established or identified as areas that need to improve are on the urban agriculture side. There's a big push for that. And then more specifically, how do you develop a soil blend, which sounds pretty straightforward, but how you develop a blend of what we call growing medium or substrate that can go on a roof and support plants, support strong yielding plants, and actually make it more economically valuable to grow plants on a roof. And then that's in line with our goals. We're trying to make that more accessible. So on the residential side, say, you live in a little condo, you have a little balcony and you want to grow your own plants. How can we make that really easy and cost effective for you to do? Or maybe you want to throw a urban roof on a garage at your place or whatever. Or we're sort of working towards making that more cost effective and simple for a homeowner or customer or what have you. So that's sort of the goal of our research is that accessibility of urban agriculture, I'll call it.
And would you be able to tell us a little bit more about specifically like the kinds of green roofs that you design? So maybe like what the process might be like to like design and implement a green roof in like a particular location, and like maybe any challenges or other factors that you might have to consider.
Yeah, so it really depends. It's very job specific. So our company is Canada-wide, so we'll service all the way from Halifax to Vancouver, and you have a lot of different climate zones there. So that right away poses a challenge for us. So we have to be cognizant of that. Obviously, Canada is a big, beautiful country with lots of different microclimates. So we're always sort of, I wouldn't say battling, but we're always working with the environment and trying to design a green roof system that would most benefit that climate. So whether it's commercial or industrial or residential, it usually starts with working with an architect or an engineer and seeing what's the design of the building, what are the layout plans, what does the roof structure look like, what's on the roof currently, and then what are the goals for the project. So if the goal is we want the most basic green roof, just the easiest to take care of plants, most minimal system, then no problem, we can work with that. All the way from, we want a full soccer field on this roof. We can work with that as well. So it really has a lot to do with what the architects will allow and then what the customer wants. And then we usually find some nice little middle ground there. We're lucky that we retail several products that can sort of fit the mold or fit in multiple molds, whether it's very robust or very simple. So we're pretty flexible that way. But then some challenges that fall within that, obviously, as you can imagine, in Canada, we have a lot of rain, we have a lot of snow, we get a big change of season. So we're always worried about roof load. So how much weight can your roof take? It's something we're always concerned with. And then a lot of the time that maybe changes the design. So on a big warehouse roof, for example, they can't take very much weight. It's basically the snow, the water, the whatever, and that's really it. So then, okay, if we want a green roof, then do we have to then go in and add structural elements to the building to shore that up? Or if you're, say, building a house, maybe it's a smaller structure, so you can use less material and make it a lot stronger, and then you could put a full forest on your roof in some cases. So, we got quite a bit of flexibility. There's quite a few things to work with. All of them are very feasible. We've tackled a lot of challenges, considering like the Vancouver climate, very rainy, right? So we factor in the extra rain, but then you also think it's very rainy, it's a lot more mild there. So your plants are growing for a lot longer. So that's something we consider as well. We have a job up in Fort McMurray, which is quite north in Alberta, and we sort of categorize it by climate zones in Canada. So that's a very cold climate zone, like we're getting close to the Arctic. So then you're kind of narrowed in on what plants you can actually have on that roof. Yeah, so those are certainly some broad challenges. There's always smaller site challenges, like, is your construction site really small? Is it really big? Is it busy? Are you downtown Toronto where, driving sucks and you have to battle traffic the whole time? So yeah, there's every job is very unique. Every job is different. And that's kind of what makes this field and this role, where it's kind of a branch between construction and agriculture, makes it fun. Every job is very, very unique. You're tackling different challenges each time.
When I was like reading about your company and like a little bit more about what they did, I was like super shocked that like you guys had a range from like basically all the way across Canada and like completely different kind of locations. And like I can't even imagine like being able to like apply the kind of principles in like a place like Toronto, which is like crazy busy all the time. There's so much going on versus somewhere like in the middle of nowhere. It's just kind of, it's crazy to me.
It's very interesting. I just got off a call, and the call was about 2 projects. One of them right downtown Toronto, a tiny little residential one, and the other job was Northern Ontario at a place called St. Joseph's Island, which is like 13 hours north of Toronto.
That's crazy.
So it's like, same province, sort of same idea, but like, 2 very, very different jobs. So you're always, your brain switching all over the place. It definitely makes it fun, and there's never a dull moment, I'll say.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, would you be able to tell me a little bit more about what first got you interested in urban farming? Like, did you always know you wanted to work in the field? Was it something that you discovered like later on after school? What was your kind of path?
I was exposed to, like a lot of people, exposed to gardening at a young age. I had some grandparents, a grandfather specifically, who just lived in the garden. That was his life. So I think that kind of got ingrained in me, whether I liked it or not, that I kind of was around it. So, I went with it. I was always very interested in plants, at a young enough age that, kids thought I was a weird guy for, going, like spending my, menial minimum wage job money on outfitting my bedroom with plants and plant lights and that kind of thing. So I always had that interest. I went to school for botany. So I pursued that up, followed that up in my undergrad from the University of Guelph. And then while I was in my undergrad, I worked for an agriculture company. So it's a company that produces agrochemicals, so a lot of pesticides, which obviously has some negative connotation in the media. Ultimately you're feeding people. So it's very rewarding, even though it does, maybe there's some negative connotation there. It's a necessary industry that's, working to change to sort of meet the climate change goals that are being put in place. So yeah, that's sort of where I got my agriculture experience. So it was like very much on the plant side, because agriculture, you always have the animal and you have the plant side. So I was very much geared towards the crop side, as they call it, and then crop health even more. So how do you keep plants healthy? How do you get them to yield more? And then working with farmers from like, a very small farmer who, it doesn't sound small, but like, 100 to 200 acres is small, to a guy who's farming 3,000 acres, right? So it's like, again, these challenges all over the place, and not one thing works for every guy. So you really have to, every guy or girl, sorry. So you really have to adjust what you're going to do. So yeah, that's where sort of my passion came in. The green roof thing happened a little bit later. In my undergrad, I tried starting a business with 2 guys where we were actually installing green roofs. And, so we just had a shot. We sunk some money into it. We lost some money, but we had a good experience. And then I'm actually now working with those 2 guys that I started the business with. So what was a little, sort of insignificant idea when I was in my undergraduate, and I met these guys and we all kind of had that same interest. Now it's turned into a career for me and these 2 guys that I started this business with.
Wow. So it kind of happened a little bit by chance.
100% by chance.
Okay.
Let's try throwing a green roof. It was actually, our first customer was my parents. They had a little shed, and I convinced them to let us install a green roof on their shed. And that was the first one we ever installed together. And it's still up today. So it's like coming up on 8 years old or 7 years old or something like that. Yeah. And then so that I did my master's, the 2 guys I worked with, they went off and did their master's. And then we all sort of, over a period of 3 years or so, we ended up back at the same green roof company, which we're currently at now, which is ZinCo. So we're all there.
Would you be able to maybe tell me a bit more about some of your current or past projects? So any of the ones that maybe stood out to you as being, I don't know, particularly interesting, or something that you particularly enjoyed designing or manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll give you 2 answers. So from a research standpoint, the project I'm focused on now, obviously it's snowing outside, so all our research is inside. We're right now working with a retired University of Guelph professor who was in the botany sort of environmental science program back in the day when he was teaching. And he's got a growth room. He's got access to like a growth room, which is just a fancy way of saying like it's basically a room outfitted with plant lights that's got some like, humidity controls and other things. We're doing a project there that is geared towards that sustainable agriculture piece. So how can we input less fertilizer, for example, in soil and still maintain high yielding plants? So again, trying to make it easier for the homeowner to say, okay, if I remember to fertilize once or twice a year, I'm still going to get delicious tomatoes or whatever. This is an example. So we're working on a project with him right now. So that's sort of where our research department is at. As far as the actual, like what pays the bills, like the projects that sort of pay the business bills, if you will, we have a fairly remote job up in Northern Ontario that I'm looking after. And actually, I just referenced it in the last call. It's going to be the most northern green roof and solar job in Ontario. So what I mean by that is there's plants on the roof, and then basically on top of the plants, or sort of suspended above the plants, is some solar panels. So it's a very, very cool system that we're able to install. It requires a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved, but these green roof and solar projects are getting a lot more popular, and for good reason. They make a lot of sense, and I could go into that a little bit if you'd like. But yeah, this is a very cool job. It's a bit challenging, right? Because it's fairly remote. We're very northern Ontario, and there's a lot of different parties. We're not solar experts, so we got to bring in some solar experts. Just getting materials to site is a big issue. Where do our employees stay once we're there, kind of thing? What does the homeowner want to see? All that sort of stuff. So it's been a fun project so far, and it's set to be installed this summer. So we're looking forward to that one. It's been in the works for a year or so. So we're looking forward to getting it going.
Wow. Would you be able to maybe, elaborate a bit more about the green roof / solar panel combination? Because I personally have never heard of that being like a concept or even a thing that was being applied in different places across Ontario.
Yeah, no, it's certainly new, especially in Canada. It's more common in Europe, but they have a climate that more favors it. We have some really, really good solar professionals here in Canada, so we've sort of merged the two industries. But the biggest benefit is actually from the plants. So a lot of people don't know this, but I believe the stat, and I could be wrong, again, I'm not a solar guy, but every degree over 21 degrees, solar panels lose 5% efficiency. Does that make sense? So if it's a super hot day in the summer, 30 degrees, sun baking these panels, they're going to be far less efficient than if it was 21 degrees or lower. Now, the reason plants benefit that is the evapotranspiration of plants. So like the pulling the water through the plants releasing that water as part of their regular metabolism actually cools the area around the roof if the plants are on the roof or wherever those plants may be. And so if you have solar panels and then plants below them, that space, that small, say 1 meter or whatever it may be above the plants is cooler than what be that like the 2 meters above that and so on and so on. So the plants benefit the solar by making them more efficient, by keeping them cooler essentially. So you get, I guess, an easy way to say, you get more bang for your buck from your solar panels from an energy standpoint if you have plants underneath them. And maybe, if you're driving past like a big solar farm where you have like rows and rows of solar panels, people are now starting to plant like taller grasses underneath them to try to get that sort of same idea where you're cooling the solar panels above them. So it's like a nice marriage of like new technology and just plants doing their thing. Like it's modern technology meet nature kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know that like right now, when I think, or at least when I picture like a solar farm, I'm kind of picturing like flat lands and like there's not really any plants around. It's just the sun really beating down on the solar panels. And, like I had no idea that like the temperature, like the ambient temperature around could potentially affect the efficiency. I don't think that that's intuitive for a lot of people.
No, and truthfully, like until, I got involved with this business, I had no idea either. So I don't blame anybody. Most people don't go around installing solar panels, right? It's not something that you'd ever think of. But yeah, so this is a pretty fun project for sure. We have another one. I think I referenced Fort McMurray. That's another green roof and solar project. That one we really like. It's, I don't want to mess up the name here. It's the Métis Cultural Center. So it's like an Indigenous cultural center building. It's got a really unique shape. It's like a very, I don't want to misspeak here, but it's a very representative shape of the Métis culture. It kind of looks like an 8 a little bit, and the building shaped that, so it's a cool feat of architecture, and it's got plants and solar panels as well, and you can actually walk up onto the roof from the ground and walk the roof. It's very, very cool. We're planting all Indigenous plants on the roof as well, like plants that are native to the area, but also are significant within the Indigenous culture. And so we've worked with them to like what plants that sort of meet those requirements can we actually put on a green roof. So there's a lot of testing and a lot of research that has to go in behind a project like this.
And would you be able to tell me a bit more about what your day-to-day life kind of looks like? So what might a typical work day or a typical work week look like for you?
Yeah, no, it's a super good question. Like I said, we're quite a small company, so every day is different and every day might change on the fly. So, some days I wake up and, I have training, for example, on a green roof system from some of our partners in Germany, who we work closely with. So Germans are very good at green roofs. They're actually the best in the world. So we get training from them. Given the time change, sometimes that's at 7 a.m., sometimes it's at 6 a.m. So sometimes we're doing that, which is fun. And then maybe we're dealing with clients. I'm taking calls from customers, whether they're homeowners or whether they're contractors or whether it's a roofing company. We're just servicing them, making sure they're happy, making sure that our system's going to work well with them, making sure that everybody's in the know. And, maybe after lunch, I go and I visit our research trial and our growth room right now. I water the plants, maybe take a couple pictures. I make sure, everything's looking good, make sure there's no pests, for example, like, anything eating our crops that we're trying to grow, something like that. And then we're addressing issues there. And yeah, I would say, it varies quite a bit day to day. Right now in the winter, obviously we're doing more inside stuff, but once we get in the summer, we're we're on job sites, we're there with the roofs being installed, we're helping our contractors as needed and making sure our product goes in okay and making sure that our roofs look good. We have ones that have been planted 10 plus years ago. So we obviously like to go check those, make sure everything looks good, make sure our customers are happy, whether they're a homeowner, whether it's, it's on a hospital or a convention center, whatever it may be, just checking in, making sure our plants look healthy and the system's working as it should be. So yeah, quite variable. I can't really build out a full day because every day is completely different.
That's totally fair. And I think that for a lot of people, that might be something that they're interested in. Like I know a lot of individuals don't want the monotony of like a typical 9 to 5, and having a job where every day is different, I think is valuable to a lot of different people.
Yeah, I would definitely say, in small businesses, that's sort of a necessity, right? When you work for a small business, maybe work for a bigger, and I've worked for a large, global multi-billion-dollar agriculture business where it is maybe a little bit more of the same thing every day. And it's still nice, it's still, there's a benefit and there's a drawback to each, right? So, you just got to find what works and what you enjoy doing, and then sort of find a company that's gonna help you facilitate that. And I was lucky that I fell into this one by happenstance.
And I guess, do you have any advice or things that you would like younger students or other people that are interested in the field to know?
I would say reach out early. So like one thing I never did is, you think of someone, maybe you're in grade 12 and you think, oh, no one's going to want to talk to me about, what's out there university wise, what's out there career wise, whatever. But I think I would really encourage people to reach out and say, I just went on this guy's website. It looks like they do cool stuff. I'm going to just send him an email or give him a call and say, hey, I was just wondering, I had like a couple questions for you. I was wondering if you could answer them. A lot of the time that can spark a big interest. A lot of the time they can give you a bit of advice that maybe you can't get online or from a peer, from whatever, because they've sort of been through the ringer or been through something that you might be just about to go through. They can give you some advice there. So one thing I wish I did when I was younger was just reach out to more professionals. There's probably some unintended things there, like it helps you, sort of discuss with maybe someone more established in a career. Maybe that helps you in an interview down the road. It gets your name out there. Maybe there's even an option to, volunteer at the workplace or get some experience, or they're willing to take you around the office or show you what they do on a day-to-day. Everybody likes to, show off what they do at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that. So, if I had a student reach out to me, whether they're in grade 12 or first year, second year university, whatever, I'd be more than happy to, spend an hour or whatever and discuss with them options, things that I went through, things that I wish I knew, that kind of thing. So my advice would be just reach out to people. I would think you'd find that they're more than willing to discuss the experience that they've had.
And I just wanted to add that I think that goes for basically any field. A lot 100%. Of professionals, I think, would be willing to talk to students.
I would say that, if you feel like a weird kid like me and you're really into plants, and maybe you weren't into the regular things or whatever, follow your passion. There's tons of jobs in the agri-food business and the food supply chain, that sort of side. Everyone's got to eat. You get a lot of job security, which is very nice. Things that people don't really think about, that job security piece. It is rewarding at the end of the day, right? You're feeding people, you're helping people, whether it's plants on a roof or whether you're growing corn or whatever it may be. At the end of the day, you're doing something positive for the environment and positive for somebody. So it is quite rewarding field, I'll say.
And I guess the one last question, I just wanted to get your opinion on how your work kind of affects the real world. I know you kind of touched on this a bit before, and maybe potentially where you see urban agriculture moving in the future, so the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, so I talked a lot about like the greener specific. I'll try to focus more on the urban ag side. So the times that we're in, I know it's like probably been overshared or oversaid, but the times that we're in, prices are going up with food, gas, whatever they may be, and a lot of the onus is falling back on either the homeowner or the individual, maybe to get more involved on the environmental side, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a perfect storm of like prices are going up, climate change is becoming more apparent, that kind of thing. So a lot of what we like to do is try to make sure we're very green friendly. Like everything we do is very geared towards this has to have a positive impact, whether it's socially, environmentally, whatever it may be. And so that urban ag side, making that accessible to people, making, maybe grocery bills cheaper, maybe making people more engaged in a community, like a community gardener, for example, where you kind of teach the next generation or you're getting people out of the house or whatever it may be. There's lots of incentive to sort of push that field forward, especially in a setting like, downtown Toronto, or even downtown Waterloo or whatever. Maybe you live in a suburb, whatever it may be, to get out there, get engaged and start learning new applicable skills, stuff outside the classroom where you're learning how this system works, you're learning how this system works. It'll set you up for a lot of success down the road. And we don't like just to think about like the monetary benefit or the monetary or economic impact of our systems. There's also that social piece, the environmental piece, which often gets forgotten, unfortunately, but we try to, always keep that in mind when we're discussing our products and we're discussing, green roofs or urban ag or whatever it may be.
Those are basically all the questions that I had. I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time to do this interview. We really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thanks so much.
No worries.